Ben on marriage and fatherhood. His first book, Father to Son, Life Lessons on Raising a Boy, sold more than 400,000 copies. Now he's following it up with Father to Daughter, Life Lessons on Raising a Girl. He describes this one as something for men who love their baby girls but are used to reading the sports section and watching headline news. Please welcome to AM Northwest, Harry Harrison.
Harry, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Harry, nice to see you. Now, we should say right off the top, you are raising two sons. So when you went to write Father to Daughter, how did you know what to say?
Well, in the beginning, not a lot, but I went and interviewed fathers of successful daughters. And by successful daughters, daughters who had earned academic scholarships to colleges, daughters who were successful athletes, successful musicians. And I was very interested in how they had accomplished that.
Is there a major difference? I've got only sons too, Harry. Tell me, enlighten me. Is there a huge difference? They're just kids, right?
You know, I interviewed dads also who had raised both girls and boys. And I think at the end of the day, it depends on the child. If you have a 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl, and she's going out on her first date, more than likely as a dad, you might have a little anxiety with that.
You might want to rent a helicopter.
You might want a trailer, but but if you have a boy and he's kind of a wild child, you may be more anxious about him than the daughter, because there's a lot of level-headed girls out there.
Through your research, you've come up with 5 keys on raising either a son or a daughter. Let's take a look first at the 5 keys to raising a daughter. Take us through those, Harry.
Well, be involved in her life. This is probably the biggest key in the fact that with men especially, we go to work, we come home, how are you doing, give me a remote control, sit down, and we think our 2 minutes of interaction will pass for being a father. And kids spell love T-I-M-E, and at the end of the day, it's how much time do you spend with your child.
Yeah.
And I love the last one there, be her hero. How do you become her hero?
Well, it goes back to the first one, being involved in her life, be around her, just be with her. Show her how you deal with the complexities of life.
Now, I want to see the 5 keys to raising a son and see how many are the same. Be a hero is the same. Be around is the same.
Very similar. Be a father, not a friend. And with a son, I remember when my oldest son, Sage, was in 7th grade, and we were having 7th grade for both boys, for both sons and daughters can be difficult for fathers, but with my son Sage, we were going through a particularly difficult time, and I was putting him to bed one night, and I came back to tell him that in spite of everything, we're going to get my way, but I still loved him. And he said, Dad, I thought you were my friend. And I said, well, that's where we're wrong. I'll always be your father.
Yeah.
Leads to a good discussion.
Right.
And I love in the book where you say, accept the fact he may not be a quarterback, he might be a tuba player.
And a fine tuba player.
Which for a lot of fathers can be tough because they have the sports influence when they grow up.
Yeah.
Well, with a son especially, we want to mold our sons the way we're men, and we have our own self-image. And with dads, it's difficult sometimes to let our sons develop their own talents. And we have to back up, encourage their talents to develop, and not for them to develop our talents.
Well, we covered the 5 keys, but each book contains hundreds of suggestions, I guess I would put it, 378 for girls, and I spent all my time with the girls' book. Here's the one I like. Remember, if you yell at a boy not to play with a wall socket, he'll stomp off or do it anyway. A girl will cry. And
that's another big difference between raising boys and girls. I've talked, again, dads of both boys and girls, and boys, they are kind of independent cusses, and they don't get their feelings hurt. Girls tend to get their feelings hurt, and dads learn, instead of saying, hey, quit doing that, honey, let's not hurt ourselves, and that's the way.
And if you're the hero, it's magnified, isn't it, if you discipline too harshly?
And you think about teenage girls now who maybe don't have a father around the house, or whose hero figure is not what you'd really want, and the impact on her life of having a hero figure that isn't her father, or having a hero figure that is not the figure you'd want.
In fact, the one that choked me up is when you say for daughters, be prepared to not always be the most important man in her life.
And if you've been a really close father, and she's now going to college, you've met the boy that she's engaged to. I know a lot of dads that has brought them to earth.
Yeah.
And they've been wonderful fathers, and that's a passage, but it's something that they have to live with.
One I like that I think applies to both, but I think it was in the boys' book. It was, if your child is on a team where the coach screams, get the kid off the team if you're the coach that screams, quit.
And
that
actually, that was me. I became a soccer coach, so my son would never have the kind of coach that I became. And I had to learn to back off and pick and actually just pick up the sports section and read during the games. And
but
let
wonderful
develop.
you could recognize that,
Yeah.
because many dads don't. So
It's golden advice, it really is.
thanks so much, Harry Harrison. The books, once again, Father to Son and Father to Daughter, would make wonderful Father's Day gifts. Thanks for joining
Thank
us
you all.
this
Harry,
morning.
thanks for your
Appreciate it.
insight. We appreciate it.